This is the Fatty Joe Show, coming to you from Casa de Carrie, deep in the forests of Nutmeggerville. This show is dedicated to exploring pathways to better health from a holistic perspective. In each episode, we will explore such topics as nutrition, mental and emotional health, fitness, and more. I'm Yogi, your host, and I became interested in studying health after conventional health dogma became damaging and led me to become massively overweight. Against modern convention, I went on a keto lifestyle and I lost over 300 pounds and gained a level of control on my personal health that I never had before. Now I'm on a journey to find out what is myth and what is truth in the ever-convoluted world of what is considered healthy. Come join me on a journey of discovery as I look for a path to improve total health. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thefattyjoeshow or patreon.com/carriebrown. If you want to check out all of our social media links and recipes, head to carriebrown.com. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the show.
Hey everyone, this is the first half of our interview with Marty Kendall. The interview itself went a bit long, so we broke it up to 2 episodes. The second episode will premiere next week. We'll also have a special bonus episode of some of the behind-the-scenes conversation that Marty and I had before I actually started the episode, so be sure to watch out for that as well. All right, with no further ado, I present the interview with Marty Kendall for the Fatty Joe Show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fatty Joe Show, coming to you from Casa de Carrie land, deep in the heart of the Nutmegger Forest. Today I have an awesome guest on, and this is right up my alley. As you guys hear on the intro, I always talk about dogma. I talk about the things that we learn that we think are true, the things that have often led us down the wrong path because we hold to it without proper data or explanation, just because somebody told us it worked. And today I have Marty Kendall, and he has made his keto career about putting out data-driven information and busting keto myths that people like to spread around and often does a disservice to people who are trying to live a healthier lifestyle. So, Marty, how are you doing today, boss?
Yeah, good, man. Yeah, great. It's a beautiful Saturday morning in Brisbane, Australia, and it started raining, and it's lovely. Yeah, doing well.
Yeah, it's been snowing out here. It's just starting to melt. Yeah, so
coming into summer, it's beautiful. So yeah,
isn't this kind of crazy with the technology that we
can
sit here, look at each other face to face and have a conversation, then record that and spread it to the world. So used to be when you did pirate radio, you'd get in big trouble, and now podcasts are essentially pirate radio. So I always like to ask the guests to tell us their superhero origin story, basically where they came from, how they got into keto, and where that journey came. And the other thing I want to touch on, people, is Marty's an engineer. So he's part of the series that we've been coming out with about with the engineers, the citizen scientists that are really making all this keto stuff a thing in the world. You know, it really, the people that popularized the keto thing were the guys from Silicon Valley, like the Dave Asprey's, and it moved on to Dave Feldman's and Ivor Cummings and Marty Kendall's, and you guys have actually now started getting the medical community. It was you guys that started this, and you're getting the medical community to sit up and take notice now. So it's really cool, and I really believe it is the way you guys think and the way you guys approach problems with looking at it holistically and be willing to tear things down in order to find a problem that really is the difference between you guys and the medical personnel, and why you guys are so flexible changing. But Marty, let's get into your superhero origin story. Where did you get your big red S on your shirt?
Not sure about the superhero bit, but no, my wife, Monica, is type 1 diabetic. And I suppose 18 years ago when we got married, started thinking about having kids. She didn't understand much about the condition she had, and I had no idea. And we went to find a doctor, and we learned more about type 1 diabetes and how to manage that to some degree, and had 2 great healthy teenagers. But ever since then, it's just been this journey of trying to understand how to manage diabetes and nutrition. And I've got a family history of type 2 diabetes and obesity, and always been the fat kid and struggled to optimize my health. And I suppose so it's very much a personal journey. 5 years ago, I came across Jason Fung, and he talked about the food insulin index, and I dug up a bunch of data there and started analyzing that and smashed that together with nutrient density, and then found a whole bunch of other data that talked about satiety, and sort of tried to systematize that. I realized that, while Moni's trying to manage type 1 diabetes, there's other people who, are trying to lose weight, and that may not be the right approach for them. And some people are athletes and trying to gain weight, and some people are managing epilepsy, and some people want to eat all animals, and some people want to eat all plants. So I thought, let's try to use my knowledge and understanding to make a system that will be flexible enough based on, what are the key fundamental principles that work for all of those people, that we can apply in a flexible way that can be tweaked to suit their needs and goals. So it's not just one size fits all, but a system that can be tweaked to fit all those different goals. So just having fun doing it and sharing it. And 5 years ago, I started blogging, optimizing nutrition, and Jason Fung actually shared it with Ivor, and he shared it on his blog and got a whole bunch of attention from people. And then I got involved in Low Carb Down Under, and then Type 1 Grit. And it's just been a snowball journey from there. It's sort of taken over my life, and I'm trying to maintain a day job to earn the money while talking to people like you on the weekends and having a whole lot of fun doing it. So just trying to be a superhero, but tired and trying to sleep at the same time. So
even Superman was a reporter in his day job. So
I like it.
There you go. So you have recently come out with a book, and where you are taking the myths that are surround the ketogenic diet that people put out, like many people expose fat chasing to lose weight, or many people expose to chase the higher ketones and things like this. And in some ways, this lack of information and this abundance of misinformation it can create a lot of damage to the keto lifestyle and the keto movement. So let's get into your book a little bit. Let's talk about the genesis of where it came from, and there are so many chapters on that book. So we'll get let's talk about some of the popular myths. Let's pull out some of the popular myths as we go and kind of talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, I called it Big Fat Keto Lies, but it's sort of the dead ends that I found on my nutritional journey, that I heard things, I believed them, and I tried them, and they failed. And I went, okay, let's look at the data, and what data can I find about myself and my friends, and I've had with Nutrient Optimizer, and trying to get as much data as I can see what actually does work. Like, just eat fat to satiety. I always thought, if I ate more and more fat and my ketones got higher, and I'd be losing body fat. And, I just looked in the mirror after a year of following the keto dogma, and I didn't look so great, and my weight was going up, and I looked inflamed. And so I suppose that whole concept of optimal ketosis, and more ketones are better, and however you get them, they're magic, and they lead to fat loss. But I suppose what we've discovered is, over the last 5 years, is more people have played with the ketogenic diet. We tend to adapt, and that ketosis is a sort of a metabolic workaround when you don't have enough oxaloacetate from the protein and carbs in your diet that enable you to burn fat in the Krebs cycle. So over time, ketones, many people find that ketones continue to drift down. So they go, well, do I need higher ketones? Do I need to eat more and more fat? Which can tend to be counterproductive in terms of fat loss, insulin resistance, and weight loss over the long term, and nutrient density. So that's a big passion for me, but a lot of things come back to that nutrient density dialed in to suit your goals. It is nearly the holy grail. Your body doesn't, care about ketones as much. It just needs nutrients, and enough energy to survive, but not too much. So there's a whole bunch of things like that. Eat fat to burn fat, and you have to be in ketosis to burn fat, and you should be afraid of protein because of gluconeogenesis. And there's a whole, insulin is something I live with all day, and I thought initially you need to avoid insulin and minimize insulin, and avoid protein to stabilize insulin and get flatline blood sugars and all those sort of things, and that would lead to optimal health. But then you see people with their CGMs and they're drinking unlimited bulletproof coffee, and they've got these flatline blood sugars, but it doesn't lead to satiety because you've got most of the insulin your body produces is to keep your body fat in storage. If my wife Monica stopped taking insulin, all that stored energy would just leach into her bloodstream, and she'd have high glucose, ketones, and free fatty acids, and that would be an awful situation. But the secret to reducing insulin is really to optimize body composition and be carrying less excess energy on your body, because 80% of the insulin your body produces is to hold back the energy and storage. So satiety, nutrient density is sort of what I've come to as the key things to help people dial in their diet, rather than just chasing unlimited ketones. And you really want the fat, the ketones to be coming from the fat on your body, not necessarily the fat in your diet, if your goal is diabetes reversal or weight loss and those sorts of things. So it's been a journey, and I've documented everything in my blog, and got to a point where I thought, let's just consolidate it all into one sort of work to say, here it is, everything, all my nutritional failures and things I believed and thought I knew, and this is what I've learned. So it's been fun and good to have it out there.
Nice. Yeah, it's it kind of harkens back to the sad American diet in a lot of ways. We were told for a long time, this is how you maintain your health. You have to eat so many grains, you have to eat so many things. And then people started jumping into keto, and they started seeing a change. But at the same time, that same type of misinformation that was in the sad American diet kind of spread over into keto.
Yeah.
So my purpose for doing keto is a little bit different than most other people. So I have modified mine to actually, I don't necessarily chase ketones, but I generally try to chase a little bit higher fat in my diet most of the time. I'm doing it for brain health. Okay, so I'm doing it for brain health. I called the show the Fatty Joe Show, but one of the things, and that's actually after the bulletproof style coffee, but I didn't want to pay money. So
it's a cool name. I like it.
Yeah, but nutrient density is something that I was focused on, and you touched on, because in my mind, in the most simplistic way of thinking, I view the body as like a puzzle piece. If you're trying to put together the puzzle piece and you want to make the full picture, and you're missing some pieces, you may not be able to see. You might be able to make something out, but it doesn't quite work properly. Yeah. So if you're trying to fix your insulin and you're trying to fix your hormone levels and your response things, then certain nutrients like vitamin D and magnesium and mineral, these micronutrients play a key role. And there's not a lot of keto people that are actually putting emphasis on these micronutrients.
For sure. Yeah, and definitely once you switch from a standard diet to a keto diet, electrolytes particularly become important, the sodium, potassium, magnesium particularly, and your as your insulin levels drop, your body flushes those electrolytes out and you get the keto flu. And so that's initially really important to focus on. But then all of the micronutrients are important. And if you're eating a vegan diet, you'll be lacking, B12 and omega-3. And if you're on a carnivore diet, you may find, other nutrients like potassium or vitamin C harder to get depending on what type of, and everybody's got this individual nutritional fingerprint instead of an individual solution of which foods they maybe need to prioritize a little bit more, which meals they need to try and eat more of to get those nutrients. So yeah, that's sort of the engineering. Like you said, it's a problem, it's a puzzle piece, and it's been a fascinating, it's like, okay, I can see how the puzzle works. It's not just like everybody needs more of blah and so they should go supplemented. It's like which foods solve the puzzle piece for you, which has been fascinating to try and automate that, to guide people in a more streamlined way to solve that. And it's a whole new way of thinking about nutrition that I'm hoping to get out to the world, and that's why I spend my weekends and early mornings trying to do this stuff.
Well, it almost harkens over to paleo, who does focus a lot more on micronutrients. So it's kind of a between the two.
Yep, definitely.
The people that I followed for a long time over at Let's Truck, they were really big on the micronutrients as well as the macronutrients. And,
very much.
They were very much a part of the nutritional therapy practitioner program. So it's something that I've kind of come along, and I noticed for me, like, there's physical signs that I'm not getting the right nutrition, and one of them is muscle cramping. And some of it may be that I'm getting too much of a nutrient that is triggering my muscle cramps, because vitamin D block mineral absorption. So I have to kind of cycle things up and down, like more minerals here, more vitamin D here, and then but not combine the two.
Yeah, it's a fascinating puzzle piece, and like you say, some nutrients compete for absorption, and if you take too much of one thing, it'll like too much magnesium will compete with calcium absorption, and you don't get that balance. And excess vitamin D supplementation may drive excess calcium absorption, and so it's not just a matter of going, let's devise a chemistry set of supplements and a super supplement stack that'll solve the problem. It's more often, real whole natural foods contain those nutrients in a form and a balance that your body knows what to do with. So if you just, and you mentioned the, nutrient cravings are a massive driver of appetite as well. So if you're not getting enough of X, Y, or Z, your body sort of continues to seek out more food until it gets enough protein or magnesium or sodium. And a lot of people in the fasting keto community notice once they have some bone broth or some sodium, the appetite settles down. And that's just the same across the board. And it's a matter of trying to solve all of those pieces of the puzzle all at once, which is fundamentally nutrient dense whole food grown in a happy regenerative ecosystem. But that's the ultimate solution. But I'm just trying to, it seems obvious, but the medical nutritional community, who knew nutrition could be about nutrients? It seems self-evident.
And then not only is it about the nutrients, but it's also how you touched on it a bit, but how the nutrients work together. And a lot of nutrients work in synergy with one another. And
totally.
The ironic, well, not ironic, but you often find these same nutrients will be available in the same type of foods, or common foods that are traditionally in traditional diets in many cultures are combined together quite a bit. You find that they have complementary nutrients in there.
Definitely. Yeah.
Like vitamin K2 and D3.
Yeah. And nature's amazing and combines all those things. But, our modern food system, what's it designed for? It's designed for, making it taste amazing and making you buy more of it and being as cheap as possible. So none of those things that are implicit in foods found in nature or those traditional foods that people knew how to create things just over years of refining, that they knew how to get the optimal nutrient balance and how to get the nutrients they needed out of the food. But that's sort of been lost, and sort of sticky taped over with, these artificial flavors and colorings that trick your body into thinking it contains nutrients, but that food doesn't. It's just, this energy dense, highly processed slop that's generally a combination of refined oils, refined starches from grains and sugars, and then colorings and flavors to make it, to make you want to eat more of it. You wouldn't probably eat any of that food if it wasn't for the flavors and colorings that are put over it to trick your well-developed senses to think it actually contained nutrients.
Yeah, one of the things that you made me think of with that part of the conversation about the manufacturing of food for different flavors and things like that is the theory of the Bliss Point that was coming from the American scientist about making things sweet enough to drive cravings to make you want more, but not overly sweet. And there's like this balance. This happy point.
It's a really I've forgotten the guy who developed it, but there's an amazing amount of mathematical research into doing surveys of people and saying, do you like this food with more or less sugar, fat, salt, combining them all together. And it's amazing how the Bliss Point has changed in America, particularly over time. And a particular bar in America by the same manufacturer will be even sweeter than in the UK, because the American palate has just continued to ramp up to be, the sensitivity has disappeared to real food taste, and you have to turn up the dial more and more and more. So any real food tastes much less interesting. It's like, unlimited streamed porn, and then, real life is comparatively boring, and you lose the interest for the real wholesome stuff. And but at the same time, our food system is being grown in mass produced. Even the vegetables is often in less nutritious soil. It's been depleted more and more and more after just driving the same crop over and over again in the same field, just fueled by fossil fuel fertilizers that just make things grow really quickly. So not only do they grow really quickly, they're in nutrient depleted soil, so those foods don't taste as good. But once you get a real tomato or a real whatever that's grown in nature in the way it's meant to taste, to go, wow, this actually tastes amazing because it has the nutrients it's meant to contain. And if you try to incorporate the best food you can afford into your palate, then you sort of transition away and move back from that palate that's been turned up to 13 for so long. You've lost all sensitivity. So it's no wonder that we've not getting the nutrients we need, because all those processed foods that are turned up to 13 with these fake flavors and colors, they don't contain the nutrients we need.
Asia is experiencing a similar problem too. When I lived over in the Philippines, like every bread product you bought had almost like a glazing to it, with sugar, and it's even amplified more. And as you were talking, I was relating it to drug usage, like heroin use, where you think a heroin user is always chasing that first high. They're trying to achieve that first feeling that they had, and they never do. And that's why so many people die of heroin overdose, is again, they keep adding more to try and get that first high that they had.
Yeah, it all comes back to the dopamine sensitivity, and the more you expose yourself to something, the less you get a dopamine hit from it. But the problem with the food we're being given to eat is that it doesn't actually, you sort of promise something it doesn't actually give you. It doesn't give you the nutrients that it's sort of like, somebody who's made up to look like somebody they're not underneath. And the food we're eating doesn't actually contain the nutrients that it's promising.
We're seeing this in the keto world as well, with all the manufactured keto products. Many of the keto products that come out are very much devoid of nutrients, and they have keto on the label, but they're hyper sweet and palatable with no nutrient benefits to them whatsoever.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll read the ingredients too, and it'll be like keto, first ingredient, natural cane sugar.
Yeah, you mentioned paleo before, and I'm a big, massive fan of Rob Wolf, and he's helped me a lot and influenced me a lot over the years. But you look at the rise of paleo, and it was everybody was getting into these real whole foods, and then all of a sudden the paleo comfort foods came out, and people kept going, is this paleo? And then they've got these dates and honey and almond flour all mixed together, and these amazing, they taste incredible, but it's just the same as that mixing starch, fat, and artificial flavors. It's the same formula applied. So what you see across the world is this, seed oils have just risen over the last 100 years, and then the use of carbs from the agricultural products that have dropped, and then from the 50s, 60s started to rise as well. So you've had this rise of fat over the last 100 years and carbs over the last 50 years, and you've got this combination of carbs and fat together that are incredibly rare in nature other than in autumn, and they drive our body into this hyperphagic autumnal, we have to eat more, winter's coming, give me food, and we can't stop eating these foods that have got a low percentage protein and a combination of carbs and fats together. I mean, in nature you've got the acorns, which drive squirrels just to get fat and ready for hibernation, and breast milk, which is this amazing combination that makes babies grow. But think of another food that is a perfect mix of fat and carbs. But if you look at all the processed food, it's the same thing. But yeah, in keto world, you've got your fat bombs that are just full of artificial sweeteners, and in a way that you go, yeah, this tastes amazing. I'm eating keto, and I'm hammering it down. And if weight loss or a whole bunch of a lot of the benefits of keto is when the ketones are coming from your own body fat, and you're turning over your stored energy, and losing and approaching a more optimal body composition. So that's one of the myths, is that just because I'm getting ketones from the butter or MCT oil or exogenous ketones, I'm getting all of the same health benefits. And if your goal is depression or neurological issues, or your epileptic kid who needs to grow, then that's really good. But I think unfortunately it's conflated, and I think 80% of people, maybe 90, maybe 99% of people who come to keto want fat loss, and that happens as they depart from that combination of fat and carbs together. But that only happens for a while if they don't manage the, where is your fat coming from? Is it your body or your bulletproof coffee for the Fatty Joe show? So yeah, I suppose from an engineering point of view, you've got to say, what are my goals and how we're going to get there? And everybody's goals are just a little bit different. So you have to understand how the system works.
I did lose a lot of weight using my Fatty Joes, but I think what happened with me is because I don't do things in a normal way ever. So I did focus in on a lot of that nutrient density of the things I'm consuming. So in my Fatty Joe, I would throw eggs.
Yeah. And an amazingly bioavailable source of protein. So
right. And when you temper the hot liquid from the coffee in there with the butter and everything like that, you cook the eggs, you can make this nice frothy kind of drink. And so that's where mine differed from a lot of people.
Yeah.
I would still use things like MCT oil. I was a big fan of C8 MCT oil because of how it made my brain feel.
Yeah.
And so that was my goal. And the thing that I noticed when I was going through is that I lost my appetite.
Yeah.
I did not, when I was a truck driver, and even before I was a truck driver, when I was doing sports, when I was doing the pro wrestling, my whole life, I was about food. Like I would eat and be thinking about my next meal. When I started doing this higher fat, higher protein, that kind of ceased to happen. I could go a day or two without eating. And so now I'm into a fasting state.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
that's another thing that you're getting to. Segue.
Yeah. So nice segue, man. Appetite fasting.
Yes. So that's another thing that you're getting into is your data-driven fasting research right now.
Yeah.
You have a group on Facebook about, and you've got people putting in their data about their fasts, and you're collecting a lot of things. So you're really looking, and you're doing not just intermittent fasting, but some people are doing extended fasting, and you're looking at that, and some people are doing fasting. So there are a lot of myths around and misinformation around fasting as well. And one of the ones that I asked you about the other day on Facebook is there's a specific company in general that I'm not going to say here, but they keep advertising this fasting mimicking diet. And that hit me with some red flags just as soon as I saw the name. But then when I saw the food that they were offering, I was like, I'm like, you pay a lot of money to send me some leaves, like But let's talk a little bit about some of the myths around fasting, about what fasting actually is, and then also let's get into some of your data and some of what you're uncovering with your research.
Fasting's another thing I played with a lot and used, and I'd fast for days at a time, but then it always came down to that refeed that I was really hungry, and my food choices, I was learning about nutrient density and satiety, but then I just observed myself. It's sort of like nearly torture when you understand what your lizard brain is doing when you refeed and going, I'm going for the peanut butter and the cream and the butter and the sort of keto, but the sort of really energy dense. And then over time, you're not losing the weight you hoped and not gaining the health that you hoped through this, in spite of the deprivation. So I suppose I saw a lot of other people who were struggling with the same thing, that they do long fasts, but just keep on cycling. And when they refeed, they've got the binge instincts kick in. And so something we'd played with a while ago, just coming from a type 1 diabetes, always looking at blood sugars perspective, like you see with Monica's, I'm watching her continuous glucose monitor all the time, and it balances insulin and blood sugars and tries to get it back to a healthy blood sugar all the time. And it's illogical for her to eat a whole lot when her blood sugar is really high, because she needs to wait for that to come back down. So data-driven fasting is sort of the same sort of approach, is that anybody can use the little blood sugar machine and test their blood sugars a couple of times a day, just to understand whether their fuel tank is full. And really, you can think of from an oxidative priority point of view, you've got, alcohol burns the quickest, and ketones, if they're available, burn really quick as well. And then you've got carbohydrates, and then your dietary fat, and then your body fat will burn sort of in that order. So if your glucose is high, if in your blood, you've got plenty of fuel on board. But as you deplete your body fat and your dietary fat as well, sort of the bottom level of that fuel tank will drop and diminish as well. So it's the glucose is, we look at, there's a lot of, I'm getting all these Facebook ads for Lumen, which measures your respiratory quotient, and I measured ketones, blood and breath for ages and played with all that. But really your simple blood sugar is just this amazing indication of whether you really need to eat now, and you don't, I suppose, just waiting for your blood sugar to drop a little bit below your normal pre-meal blood sugar enables you to calibrate your hunger. So I'm truly hungry, I need to eat. If your pre-meal blood sugar is dropping, you're you're losing body fat, and then you can still focus on eating well when you refeed. So you've got satiety and appetite control, to segue back to your little mention about appetite, which is absolutely critical if you're finding yourself refeeding and not losing weight. you need to find that right balance between how long you're fasting and what you're refeeding with to make sure you don't lose metabolically active lean tissue in the long term, because that's really critical. Because I think a lot of people fast for a long time, they refeed with lower protein, energy dense foods that leaves them skinny fat. They may be lighter, but they're carrying less muscle, and that's a really important factor over the long term. So yeah, data-driven fasting tries to help you balance those multiple factors to help you get just enough deprivation, but not so much you end up not being able to control your food quality when you eat again.
Yeah, I've been playing around with fasting lately because I actually put some effort into dropping the last bit of weight that I had.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it. I have to balance it in between recipe development for what we do. Really tough time to fast.
That's my problem. My wife is such a great cook. It's like, oh, this great dinner. It's like, oh, okay, let's enjoy that. But yeah.
But I found, because I've tried fasting while I was on the truck, and there was multiple reasons why it failed for me on the truck, as I'm coming to realize. One, stress of being on the road, and boredom of not having anything to do, and then you take eating out of the quotient.
It's got nothing to do.
Yeah, and your sleep pattern's all jacked up, and that always makes me, if I don't sleep properly, I get real snacky and real hungry later. So, and trucking sleep is horrible. So, but one of the things what I found when I got off the truck is I actually created a pattern for myself where I can comfortably get in and out of my fasts. The thing I was paying attention to was how my stomach felt, as well as my head, because previously when I tried to fast, I would get a headache. And I'm like, it's not right here, and I could drink water and electrolytes and still get a headache. And I'd feel nothing. So what I started to do, and I think part of it too, is that almost addictive pattern of eating. Like I'm supposed to eat now, and my body revolted because you're supposed to have food now, and so my body was trying to get me to eat. But I cycled from a liquid diet into a fast, and then out of the fast back into a liquid diet, and then solid food. And I found that transition, I was able to go 5 days without eating.
Yeah, wow.
And when I would cycle from a higher fat, higher protein approach with my liquid diet, and I would use keto cow a lot.
Yep.
Because it was just something I could do. And they have savory flavors with no sweeteners. And I found that if I did the no sweetener thing before the fast,
cool.
I would have the sweeteners kind of drive you want to eat more. So if I spent 2 days with no sweeteners, eating the savory flavors with added bone broth, and I experimented with popping up my protein and lower my fat ratios, and then kind of I found this little sweet spot.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so it would be a bit of fat and a higher amount of protein than what I normally would do. So adding eggs, and actually I was playing with egg white powder.
Yeah, wow.
To up that protein content with the whole egg in there.
Pretty much the ultimate way to get your protein, the egg white. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, it has less of an insulin response than the whey protein does.
Yeah, right.
So I figured that would help with the cravings. And then one thing I noticed is when I went to go refeed, initially, if I went into regular food, my stomach revolted on me.
Yeah, I found the same thing.
Yeah, so cycling back into something that was easy for my body to digest, very helpful. And that was mainly just bone broth, just straight up bone broth with nothing added to it. And then from the bone broth, then maybe a keto chow, and then a couple days of keto chow, and then just start bringing in small little, real food meals. And it also, what I found is I wasn't binging when I got off the fast.
Yeah. That's the critical element is, and like you said, focusing on getting the protein when you refeed is a really important factor. Especially to make sure your body composition continues to improve. You don't just want to be losing. It's actually really hard to lose weight and not lose a lot of muscle at the same time. So some people you see go from a very low protein diet and they start focusing on more protein and actually gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. But it's not a common occurrence. So yeah, you have to really, I think, focus on that, make it a priority like you're doing.
It seems to be the protein source makes a huge difference too.
Yeah. You need the bioavailable protein.
Yeah, because plant proteins don't do it for me.
Yeah,
they don't satiate me. But I'm hungrier. And then, like if I try to do pea protein or something like that, it's like I might as well just not eat anything because it's like it just drives up my hunger. But when I do something like bone broth and whey does the same thing to me. I want to eat more when I do whey.
Yeah. I was going to mention that. A lot of people, like if you think of satieties related to, macronutrients in a way, but fundamentally it seems to be related to the dietary induced thermogenesis that, it takes a lot more effort for your body to digest protein and turn it into energy, ATP, than carbs or fat, which are quite easily processed. You can only lose about 5 to 15% with carbs or fat, but you might lose 25 to 35% of the energy as just trying to process that the protein. But if you look at whey, it's already largely pre-digested and it goes straight into your body, and you don't really need much effort to pull all the molecules apart and turn them into to put them onto your body. But so for trying to focus on whole food protein sources just seems to be the ultimate, and much better than just go, I'm getting my protein because I'm eating whey protein, which is not necessarily, if you're trying to get jacked and bigger and put on a lot of bulk, it's a really good thing to do. But if you're trying to maximize satiety, probably not. And same with nutrient density, it's not as nutritious as a whole food protein source.
Yeah. Well, it seems like when we get in trouble with things a lot of times is when we oversimplify things.
Yeah.
And when you look at the protein powders and things like that, the way you can think of it is they're an oversimplified version of the protein. You're not getting everything else that usually comes with the protein that helps you do access. It's kind of like putting a lock on your door and not having the key to get in. It's so. But we generally have that issue in society altogether when it comes to oversimplification, which is where a lot of these myths and dogmatic beliefs come in. It's these oversimplifications of not looking at the entire system, but just of a specific point. And we see that not just in keto, but like when people said kale's healthy for you. So everybody just started eating kale, and that's it. I'm on the all kale diet, and it's
you can only eat so much kale before you explode,
right? But we do that a lot, and to kind of go back to food manufacturers. Food manufacturers are fantastic at oversimplifying something and creating like a catchphrase that triggers in your mind this is healthy. And one of the things is all natural. It came from the ground. It's all natural. It must be healthy for me, right?
Yeah.
But you go and explain to somebody just because it's all natural doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. There are a lot of things that came from the ground that will kill you. Majority of the plants on the planet will either make you violently ill or kill you. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's okay.
For sure. And I suppose that's what I really like about the concept of nutrient density is if you can, there's all these claims of, this, that, and the other as magic food that will give you what you need. But does it actually contain the nutrients you need naturally without having to add a whole lot of fortification and fake vitamins that probably don't do as much, and they're not in the right ratios and forms that your body knows what to do with. So that's sort of what I really, really like about the whole nutrient density concept is maybe you don't want to track your food forever, but maybe track your food for a couple of days and say, does the food I eat give me the nutrients I need naturally without having to take a whole lot of pills? And if not, then what foods should I eat more of to get what I need? And often it's not, it might look like a solid amount of veggies, but most of the energy from that plate is coming from your animal and fish and, you know, the dairy or whatever. So but it doesn't really matter as long as which extreme you end up on. Generally, you know, there's some balance between animal and plant-based foods that is a nutrient dense approach that works for individuals.
Now, let's get into a little bit of the nutrient density, because I'm sure a lot of people who listen, because there's so much misinformation out there, because there's such a lack of information on other sides, they're like, okay, nutrient density, what does that look like? What do I eat that's nutrient dense that's going to work for this type of diet?
Yeah. Well, I suppose with respect to keto, low carb, the first approach I think is if your blood sugar is on this massive roller coaster, you want to drop out the refined carbohydrates that put you on that roller coaster. But once your blood sugars are stable, then you want to focus on foods that contain the nutrients you need more of, and that might include some degree of non-starchy veggies, the spinach, kale, whatever, but some level of that. But like you say, not many people can eat a whole lot of that, and they start blending it up, but that doesn't contain the amino acids and omega-3s that come with your healthy, animal-based and seafood. So it's just basically a combination of meat, seafood, and non-starchy veggies that are fairly unrefined is the bottom line as far as what it looks like. And we've created and now 200 recipes that we've thrown into 22 recipe books that we've got another few on the way at the moment as a sideline hobby, but just trying to show people what it looks like and then bring that into Nutrient Optimizer. So based on what you're currently eating, it'll tell you which recipes which would align best for your goals and what you're trying to achieve.
For what I've seen and what I've studied, it seems to be that one of your best options for nutrient density is certain types of animal products, meats and things like that. In particular, a lot of seafoods such as oyster and lobster.
Definitely.
But and also the offcuts of meats, what we would call the offal. The parts that we're not generally eating as much now is like the bone marrow, the liver, the other organ parts. Even back in the day, it was a thing to scramble some calf brain into your eggs and things like that. And people don't do that anymore. But these things often are also the ones that people look at it and go, ew,
because they've got such a strong taste because they're so nutritious in some ways, and we're so accustomed to these hyper palatable flavored and colored foods. And I don't think everybody needs to decide between the croissant and the calf brain or living on liver, but you find some balance between that extreme. And I don't want people to think that nutrient density is all about eating caviar or calf brain or liver all the time. But like you say, it's about eating whole food and animal and seafood with a bit of plant thrown in to get the micronutrients, the particularly the minerals that can be harder to find in the meat only, and then you need a bit of seafood to get the omega-3 that's hard to find in the plant, and even the meats. And so it's sort of a nice balance across the board. But generally if you're eating whole foods, it's a good point. But if you're not getting the response you want, then dialing it up a little bit further is really helpful. You can quantify that and work out what you need for your goal.
Yeah, and there is the fact that some of the foods that we say, hey, you must eat this, it's so nutrient dense. People may have a bad reaction to it as well. You have to be careful, because if you're allergic to something, it could be oysters, which is one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet, but now it's poison to you, so it's not going to do you any good. So I think also finding things. One of the ones that I recommend to a lot of people is eggs.
Yeah,
because the nutrient density of the egg yolks, especially if it's a properly raised egg. But you also have people that have that casein protein allergy or the allergy to eggs, so they got to find something else. But it seems that a lot of people don't know about the things that are actually nutrient dense and the type of foods that are options for them, or why one food might be a better option for their situation. Like people with magnesium deficiencies may do better with more plants in their diet because plants are a magnesium-based molecule for the chlorophyll and things like that. Whereas for the animal, if you're iron deficient, then animal sources may be better for you because of the iron molecule.
And it's definitely more bioavailable from the animal source.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on the Fatty Joe Show. Be sure to leave a comment and subscribe. It helps the show reach more people. To support the show, as well as Carrie Brown and Yogi's work on the blog, keto recipe development, masterclasses, and to gain access to private Facebook groups and other awards, go to patreon.com/thefattyjoeshow or patreon.com/Carrie Brown. Also, check out our Carrie Brown and Yogi Parker YouTube channel for video versions of the Fatty Joe Show, recipe videos, and more. Join our awesome community on the Facebook group, The Keto Kitchen with Carrie Brown and Yogi Parker, and check out our carriebrown.com website for recipes, blog posts, discounts, cookbooks, masterclasses, and other great stuff. Thank you so much.